you listen to the gospel today, do you really think that Jesus is concerned with what the polls say, or what popular opinion or his approval rating is? I mean, it almost sounds, actually it makes him sound kind of human there. That he's worried what people think of him, or he's worried what they say about him. And I don't think it was that at all. I think he was more concerned about the theology. So in other words, my teachings, wherever I go, what are they saying about me? Well, some say Elijah, some say John the Baptist. So he has to be thinking, well, then they're not getting it. There's something, I have to change my teaching style, or I have to change the theology a little bit so that they can understand it. Now, as apostles, thank goodness, they come forward and they say, we know who you are now. Because for quite a while, he was saying, do you still not understand? It was almost a frustration with them. And as I listen to this, I can imagine too, you know, it takes some time to really get to know anyone, to really understand what they're about. I remember when I was assigned to St. Benedict's, which was my previous parish, by Bishop Rhodes, I had only had 1 year of Spanish in the seminary. That was it. And I was being sent to a Spanish-English parish. So my first weekend there, you know, there are some words, just like in English we have words that sound the same but they mean different things. The same is true in Spanish. And so during my homily, I had used two words. I wanted to say that I was tired because I was working on my Spanish, and I was embarrassed because I couldn't speak as fluently as I needed to. And for the first part of that, instead of saying cansado, which means I'm tired, I said casado, which means I am married. And in the second part, instead of saying embarazado, which means I'm embarrassed, I said embarazado, which means I am pregnant. So my first weekend in the parish, I was the married and pregnant priest. And they told everyone, you must come and listen to this guy because you're not going to hear this anywhere else. And then I went to Quo Vadis Days, and Bishop Rhodes says to me, oh, how did it go your first weekend? I said, Bishop, it was terrible. I did this and that, and it didn't work out, and I just, you know, are you sure this is right? This wasn't a good assignment. He said, good, I'm glad to hear it, and just kept walking on, you know. And yet after 2 years there, I fell in love. I really did. And only had 3 years there. So it took about 2 years to really get to know the people and the community. It took 2 years to really understand who I could trust with certain things and they would be done. And then those people who just didn't have the capacity to do certain things, to learn the population. And why does that seem so uncommon? When you go into a new environment, you go into a new job, or you move into a new area, it takes a while to get to know the people. It takes a while for them to get to know you. And you know, to trust them. We all kind of put up a front at first. We put up our defenses. And so I would say, you know, I'm now at my 2-year mark here. And it's gone by very quickly. Some of you might think it's been an eternity, but it's been 2 years. And, you know, throughout that time, gradually, I have come to understand, or begin to understand the community, and learn about many of you and your families, and begin to put certain trust in certain projects to different people. But just so you know, since there's no question, I am happy here. And I haven't, you know, it takes time to kind of grow into that. So I usually give myself a year to adjust. I think I'm going to start giving myself 2 years. In the next assignment, who knows, it may be 3 years to adjust. It just takes longer and longer. But in looking at what Christ is talking about here, my concern is not, you know, what the polls say or my percentage of positive acceptance or anything else, my approval rating. It's about doing what I'm supposed to do as a priest in the line of Jesus Christ. So, as we say in the baptismal formula, Jesus was anointed priest, prophet, and king. And so as a priest, I see that as my threefold role. Priest, prophet, and king. Now, nobody can do everything with excellence. So there are some of us who are going to be excellent priests, liturgical guides, but we're not good administrators, or maybe we can't teach. There are some of us who are going to be good teachers, but we can't administrate a place, or maybe we're not the best liturgists when it comes to worship. And then there are some of us who are going to be great administrators, and it's just the teaching and the liturgy thing isn't as good. St. Paul says this, many gifts but the same Spirit. And so I want to talk a little bit today about priest, prophet, and king, what I do there. So as far as the priest is the leader of worship. The priest is also the securer, the defender of the sacred deposit of faith. And so I cannot do whatever I want to do with the Mass. It's not mine to take. In fact, when we're baptized, it's not that the tradition is handed over to us, we're handed over to the tradition. And so as they told us in the seminary, in that big book, the Roman Missal, read what is in the black. Don't add or subtract to it. Do what is in the red. The red tells us how to hold our hands and movements and stuff. And you'll celebrate a beautiful Mass. We cannot subtract or add to the liturgy. That's not our place to do that. There was a priest out west who had a little apron underneath his chasuble with a pocket in it where he kept lollipops. And when people would come up at communion time, if they were not yet able to receive communion, if they were too young, he would give them a lollipop instead. Now imagine what happened when they were ready to receive their first communion. And they're getting this dry wafer. What would you choose? So we create a problem here because we've added to the liturgy. He thought, well, this way I'll be ingratiated to the people, or I'll be acceptable, or they'll think that I'm including even the little children. Communion is something that we're supposed to hunger for. It's something that we're supposed to really yearn for. So that the children, and I delight in it, I really do, when the children come up and they say, I want that, or what's that, give me some of that, or, that's the yearning that we hope someday to satisfy. So as the leader of worship, it's not only my job to stand up here and preside, but also to enforce the liturgical norms. And so for the ministries, whether it's music ministry, liturgical ministers, as far as ministers of Holy Communion, altar servers, that it's my job to try and make sure we are the absolute most reverent that we can be. Now there are some options in the liturgy. Quite frankly, you may not know this, but the whole liturgy is supposed to be sung. You can imagine people complaining about how long Mass is now, if the whole thing is sung. And I know Father Wayne and Father Pius are very good at adding parts like that. They'll sing through certain parts of the Mass. I wish I could depend on my voice that much. But music is very important. Now that is an option, but it's recommended. So that for every single prayer, from the sign of the cross to the Mass is ended, go in peace, it's all sung. It's a beautiful way that we enhance the liturgy. And so that also asks of us to sing and pray. The second part, so priest, prophet. The prophet is sometimes a little more difficult because the role of the prophet is twofold. I believe the prophet foretold things in the past. We have the great line of prophets, the Isaiahs, the Zedekiahs, the Zacharias. These are the people who prophesied. So they said, listen up. If you continue along this path, God's going to punish you. If you continue along this path, you're going to go into exile. So they were the ones who looked at their congregation, wherever they were, and kind of gave them the warnings that said, here, you're off the path. Let's get a little bit more right back on the mainstream where we need to be. The second job of the prophet is to inform their people of what they do not yet know. And sometimes that can be a little difficult because once you know, you're responsible then. So in order for something to be a sin, we have to know it's a sin. If we don't know it's a sin, then we can't commit it. And so sometimes the priest is going to be the bad guy because he's going to say, by the way, what you've been doing the last month, that's a sin. Now you can't do it anymore. Because once we know, we have a moral responsibility not to do that again. So that twofold role of the prophet is very important, but it's very difficult. There's a priest in the Midwest who I heard say that he will not preach on anything that is controversial because he does not want to drive people away. He wants to bring more people into the church. Well, just let me explain this. I am not recruiting. We are not recruiting people for St. Joan of Arc. We're not just, going out and saying, we're trying to get as many people as we can to pack this church. What we are doing is preaching the truth. That's what we need to do, even when it's uncomfortable. There were 2 teenagers who went down to South America to evangelize. And I remember the priest back here saying to them, what was your motive? So when you went out and evangelized to all these people, that's all you did all day long, what did you want to accomplish? And they said, we wanted to share the gospel with them. And that was good. Because in some places, what you're supposed to accomplish is getting these households in the church. It's all about numbers. So we visited 10 people today, and 7 of them are now registering in the church. They're going to be our converts, so to speak. That's not our motivation. Our motivation is to evangelize because it is good news. And that's the job of the prophet. Priest, prophet, king. The king one is the tough part. And you know the saying, I'm not going to quote it exactly because it's probably not appropriate for church, but the saying, it all rolls downhill. I don't believe that. I think sometimes it defies gravity and rolls uphill, if you know what I mean. And so the priest, as the governing person, the administrator, is the worst job in the world. That's my opinion, but it really is. Because you have temporal things you have to think about. Painting churches, fixing roofs, stuff like that. You have employees, and employees need benefits and salaries, and you get into all that number stuff. And in dealing with, the general population of employees and HR and all that stuff. I wasn't trained for that, but that's part of what it is. And so we are called to be administrators, and as administrators we have to be pastors. The pastor is the shepherd. And so sometimes it creates a little barrier with people that we cannot be your friends, and you cannot be our friends. Because I think that would inhibit ministry. In fact, I know for myself, there are people that I've become friendly with from my past, and they said, oh, Father, we couldn't come to confession to you anymore because you're a friend. And I think, well, I've just failed as a priest then, because I'm a priest first. And so as pastor, I can't be your friend. As friendly as you are, and as much as that might be desirable, that would be a selfish thing for me to do. In the same way, I can't be a politician either. I can't be going after the big donors and kind of coddling them or whatever else, treating them differently from other people. Or those who do a lot in the church. I can't treat them differently than everyone else. It has to be, not treating you the same, but treating equally. That's a tough deal for me. And like I said, not everybody's the prophet, the priest, or the king equally. Many gifts with the same Spirit. Now, having said that, we are a priestly people. And each of you, when you were baptized, you were anointed with chrism. And the priest said, I anoint you priest, prophet, and king. So you as priest are the leader of your household in worship. And not just bringing them to Sunday Mass, but teaching your children the prayers. Spouses really praying together. And it's tough sometimes when I recommend spouses praying together, because sometimes, the wife will get mad because it's the husband's turn to pray and he just does a glory be to the Father, or something like that. Or he just makes it as short as possible. That's his prayer. Thank God he's praying at all, And with the mothers sometimes, and I'm not being stereotypical, this is actually how it works out most of the time. The mother's prayer, she's going to pray for everyone and their mother. And, it'll go on, and so the guy starts getting impatient. He's like, come on, be patient with each other, and the different ways that happens. But you are the leaders of the faith in your family. The baptismal formula goes on to say, parents, you are the first teachers of your children in the ways of the faith. May you also be the best of teachers. Prophet, that we also have to be the prophet. That we have to be the ones who are counter-cultural. When the things that are happening in society are not good for our family, that we need to separate them from those things. And what this requires most often is that parental role. Being a chaplain in the high schools for 8 years, I've seen this firsthand. When the children will come and essentially say, you know, Father, I need a mother, not another friend. I don't need another friend. I have plenty of friends. I need a mother. I don't need someone who tries to dress like me or listen to my music or mix in with my friends. I need a mother. And I need a dad. I don't need a buddy that I can go to the games with. I don't need a buddy who can introduce me to all these things before my time. I need a father. I need someone to show me how to be a man. That's our job as the prophets. And then finally, the king. That we really are the head of our household. And we will decide what are the most important things in that household as we take care of our family, as we take care of the things that we possess. All these things are so important for us. And so as we continue to worship together, as I continue in my role as priest, prophet, and king, I ask your prayers. And I will pray for you as you continue in your role as priest, prophet, and king, regardless of what people say we are. Because what people say about us is our reputation. But who we are, that is our character.